Mankind continually encounters archaeological finds that do not fit into the widely accepted historical narrative. In the deserts of the Near East, manuscripts with encrypted texts have been discovered, which cannot be deciphered even with the use of modern computer algorithms. Geologists find marine fossils at an elevation of 4,000 meters above sea level, and in rock layers dating back 60 million years, metallic objects with signs of mechanical processing are sometimes found. Archaeologists regularly extract from ancient burials tools whose purpose remains unclear. Bronze devices with gear mechanisms, quartz crystals with engravings, and stone discs with concentric patterns. Further in our narrative, we will examine vanished cultures from which only monumental structures made of multi-ton blocks and statues with facial features typical of local ethnic groups remain. The legend of Atlantis traces its roots to the works of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who first mentioned it in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written around 380 BCE. This description has become the basis for numerous theories and myths, and seekers of Atlantis have been searching for its location worldwide. One of the most popular theories links it to the island of Santorini in Greece, which suffered a massive volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE. This event could have inspired Plato to create the legend of Atlantis, as the destruction of the island might have seemed similar to the catastrophic event he described. Other researchers point to Malta, Cyprus, and even Antarctica as possible locations for Atlantis, based on various interpretations of Plato's texts and archaeological findings. For instance, in 2015, a research team presented a theory that Atlantis could have been located in the area of the island of Crete, where traces of the Minoan civilization were found. This scientific research continues to question the reality of Atlantis, but its myth continues to inspire researchers and writers. Some historians, for example, suggest that the myth of Atlantis may be based on real events, such as the fall of the Minoan civilization or other ancient catastrophes. In 2018, a study was published claiming that Atlantis could have been based on real cities like Troy, which were also destroyed by natural disasters. Atlantis has become a symbol of a lost civilization and has sparked a wave of interest in popular culture. Scientific research related to Atlantis includes archaeological excavations and geological studies aimed at finding evidence of the existence of this legendary civilization. For example, in 2020, a group of scientists conducted underwater research off the coast of Santorini, where they found traces of ancient settlements that may be connected to the Minoan culture. Despite the lack of direct evidence, the myth of Atlantis continues to attract attention and inspire new research. In 2020, a group of researchers from the University of Liverpool presented a hypothesis that Atlantis could have been located in the area of the Bermuda Triangle, based on an analysis of ocean currents and geological data. This theory has rekindled interest in the myth and sparked new discussions in scientific circles. Atlantis remains an example of how mythology and reality can intertwine, creating rich ground for historical research and cultural interpretations. There are numerous theories about the location of Atlantis, and one of the most discussed is its position in the Mediterranean Sea. Some researchers believe that Atlantis could have been located on the territory of the modern island of Crete, which was the center of the Minoan civilization. Archaeological findings, such as the palaces in Knossos and Phaistos, indicate the presence of a highly advanced culture that, according to historians, could have inspired Plato. For example, in 2015, archaeologists found traces of ancient water supply in Knossos, which may indicate advanced technologies that existed in this region in antiquity. Other researchers point to the possibility of Atlantis existing on the island of Thera, now known as Santorini, where a catastrophic volcanic eruption destroyed local settlements. This event occurred around 1600 BCE and could have been the basis for the legend of Atlantis. In this context, some believe that Plato used real events to create his myth, wrapping it in a veiled form. However, there are also hypotheses about the location of Atlantis in the Atlantic Ocean. For instance, many researchers associate it with the Canary Islands located west of Africa. In 2012, a group of geologists from the University of Lisbon presented a study in which they claimed that underwater structures found near the Canary Islands could be the remnants of submerged lands that once connected these islands to the continent. These structures include volcanic formations and ridges that could have been part of a larger territory, now hidden underwater. Studies of the seabed show that significant tectonic movements occurred in this area, which could have led to the submersion of lands in antiquity. In Plato's dialogues, it is mentioned that Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which some researchers interpret as referring to the Sahara or its coast. In 2016, researchers from the Institute of Archaeology of the Russian Academy of Sciences conducted excavations in the area of Tripoli and discovered artifacts that, in their opinion, could indicate a highly developed civilization that existed on this coast. This discovery has fueled interest in the idea that Atlantis could have been located not only on islands, but also on continental territories that lost their forms due to climate change and geological processes. Some researchers even propose unusual hypotheses about the location of Atlantis in the Caribbean Sea or off the coast of Cuba. In 2016, a group of archaeologists from the University of Florida conducted underwater research in the area of Cuba, where they discovered underwater structures resembling roads and buildings which could indicate the existence of a submerged city. These findings have attracted attention because they coincide with Plato's descriptions of a developed civilization. Additionally, this area was home to many myths about lost cities, further fueling interest in this theory. However, despite the numerous hypotheses, none of them have definitive evidence. Research continues, and the myth of Atlantis continues to inspire both scientists and adventurers. According to scientists and researchers attempting to reconstruct the image of this mythical civilization, propose various aspects of its technological progress. For instance, some researchers believe that the Atlanteans used flying machines. In 2003, a group of historians from the University of California published an article claiming that Plato's descriptions of flying ships could be interpreted as references to something similar to airships that might have functioned through some form of anti-gravity. These conclusions are based on myths suggesting that the Atlanteans could manipulate invisible forces, which implies the existence of advanced technologies. Another intriguing area related to Atlantean technology is their transportation. This indicates the presence of complex mechanical systems and possibly the use of technologies that were not available to other civilizations of the time. According to hypotheses, the Atlanteans may also have possessed advanced types of weapons. A researcher from Oxford University in 2015 proposed that references to lightning and fire weapons could mean the existence of energy-based weapons that in today's terms could be considered lasers or other high-tech devices. For example, in 2016, a group of meteorologists from MIT presented a study claiming that ancient civilizations could have used methods similar to modern climate change techniques to control weather conditions in their favor. Regarding communication technologies, some researchers suggest that the Atlanteans could have used complex signaling systems based on sounds and light signals. In 2017, a study conducted by the University of Toronto revealed that ancient civilizations might have had systems for communication using mirrors and light reflection to transmit messages over long distances. This could explain how the Atlanteans maintained communication between different parts of their civilization. In the field of medicine, there are also several hypotheses. In 2018, a group of anthropologists from the University of Grayling presented an analysis claiming that the Atlanteans could have had knowledge of surgery and the use of herbs for treating various diseases. This could be supported by findings indicating the presence of medical instruments similar to modern ones. All this creates an image of Atlantis as a highly advanced civilization capable of technological achievements that remain a mystery to us today. However, despite all these speculations, none of the Atlantean technologies have been confirmed by archaeological findings and research continues in the fields of mythology and archaeology, the study of the mythical civilization of Atlantis remains relevant and inspires scientists to make new discoveries. Natural disasters have played a key role in the disappearance of many civilizations throughout history. For instance, a study conducted by a group of geologists from Harvard University in 2005 revealed that powerful earthquakes and volcanic eruptions could have been the cause of the collapse of civilizations in Mesopotamia. Archaeologists found evidence of devastating earthquakes that likely led to the collapse of cities and the loss of infrastructure. Volcanic eruptions also frequently covered entire regions with ash, as happened with Pompeii in ancient Rome in 79 AD, when the volcano Vesuvius destroyed the city and buried it under a layer of volcanic ash. However, human activity has also played a role in the disappearance of civilizations. A study conducted by ecologists from the University of California in 2009 showed that excessive deforestation and irrational farming practices in the Maya civilization led to significant ecological changes, which in turn contributed to its decline. Scientists discovered that climate changes caused by human activity exacerbated agricultural conditions, leading to famine and ultimately to the fall of this highly developed civilization. Moreover, the impact of time and natural factors on the disappearance of civilizations should not be underestimated. In 2016, a group of archaeologists from the University of Oxford found that many monuments of ancient cultures, such as temples and cities, were eroded by time and atmospheric conditions. For example, the famous temples of Angkor in Cambodia, built in the 12th century, are now threatened with destruction due to rising humidity levels and corrosion caused by the tropical climate. Disappeared civilizations, such as the Incas, also provide rich material for study. The Incas, who reached their peak in the 16th century, faced massive natural disasters. In the 16th century, an earthquake in the area of modern-day Peru destroyed a significant part of their capital, Cusco. This event, combined with Spanish colonization, contributed to the fall of the Inca Empire. Another example is the Harappa civilization in the Indus Valley, which disappeared around 2,000 years before our era. Studies conducted in 2015 showed that climate change, likely caused by human activity, led to the drying up of rivers and the deterioration of agricultural conditions, which was one of the reasons for the decline of this civilization. Therefore, natural disasters, human activity, and the influence of time are three interconnected factors that contribute to the disappearance of civilizations. Undoubtedly, each of these civilizations left its unique traces, but many of them have been erased by time and nature. It is important to remember that studying these disappeared civilizations not only helps us understand their achievements, but also warns us about how fragile our own civilization is in the face of natural disasters and human activity. The legend of Atlantis continues to exert a significant influence on culture and science throughout the centuries. It first appeared in the works of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who described Atlantis as a powerful state that existed around 9,000 years before his time. According to him, this continent was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. Plato claimed that Atlantis was a highly advanced civilization with advanced technologies and culture, but it ultimately disappeared as a result of a catastrophe that submerged it underwater. Many researchers, such as archaeologist Graham Hancock, have included ideas about the possible real existence of Atlantis in their works, considering various theories and archaeological findings, such as traces of ancient civilizations in the Mediterranean Sea. In 2003, Hancock published the book Underwater Cities: The History of Atlantis, in which he asserts that Atlantis could have existed based on real archaeological findings, such as submerged cities off the coast of Spain. However, most scientists reject these theories, considering Atlantis a fictional place created by Plato to illustrate philosophical ideas. Nevertheless, the myth of Atlantis has inspired numerous films, books, and artistic works, such as Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and modern films like Atlantis, The Lost Empire. This legend has also influenced popular culture, becoming a symbol of a utopian society and a mysterious civilization that could have changed the modern world if discovered. In 2018, archaeologists in Greece found traces of megalithic structures that some researchers began to associate with the myth of Atlantis, although no definitive evidence has been presented yet. Meanwhile, in the field of science, the legend of Atlantis has become a subject of study in the context of climate change and its impact on civilizations. Research conducted by climatologists has shown that climate change in ancient times could have led to the disappearance of entire cultures, such as the Maya or Harappa, adding an interesting aspect to the discussion of Atlantis as a possible utopia that could not survive natural disasters. In 2020, a group of scientists from the University of California published articles analyzing how the myth of Atlantis could reflect real events related to the disappearance of civilizations due to floods and other catastrophes. These discussions raise important questions about how myths shape our understanding of history and culture. The legend of Atlantis, despite the lack of concrete evidence of its existence, continues to generate interest and controversy. It serves as a mirror reflecting our fears and hopes regarding the future of humanity. Interestingly, many modern researchers view Atlantis as a symbol of human ambition and the pursuit of an ideal society, which can also be observed in other myths and legends around the world. The legend of Atlantis not only touches on questions of geography and archaeology, but also becomes a subject of philosophical reflections on human nature and its pursuit of perfection. Ultimately, the myth of Atlantis has become an important part of cultural heritage, influencing scientific research, literature, and popular culture, sparking ongoing debates about what constitutes a civilization and how it can disappear. There are numerous theories about which natural disasters could have caused the disappearance of Atlantis. One of the most widely accepted hypotheses links the fate of this mythical continent to volcanic activity. For instance, in 1963, researcher David George Hogarth proposed that Atlantis could have been connected to the eruption of the Santorini volcano, which occurred around 13,500 years ago and resulted in the creation of a massive tsunami. This eruption was accompanied by catastrophic destruction and could have flooded nearby lands. Volcanic activity in this region indeed left behind traces such as extensive layers of ash and lava, which researchers find in archaeological layers. Another theory suggests that Atlantis could have been swallowed by an earthquake. In 1992, scientists from the University of California in Los Angeles conducted research that demonstrated that strong underwater earthquakes can cause significant changes in the seabed, leading to the flooding of coastal areas. These studies also confirm that throughout history, many civilizations disappeared due to such natural disasters. Ecological factors could also have played a role in the disappearance of Atlantis. Climate changes, such as sudden cooling or warming, could have led to a deterioration of living conditions and, consequently, the disappearance of the population. For example, research conducted in 2005 showed that climate fluctuations in the Mediterranean could have caused droughts, which in turn led to poor harvests and famine. These catastrophic events could have undermined economic stability and triggered mass migrations, ultimately leading to the demise of the civilization. Studies indicate that such ecological catastrophes did occur in ancient times, adding weight to the hypotheses that Atlantis could have been a real place that did not survive in changing climate conditions. However, despite all these theories, searches for Atlantis have not yet been successful. Archaeologists and researchers around the world continue their searches, but no concrete evidence of the existence of this continent has been found. For example, in 2009, a group of scientists from the University of California conducted underwater research in the vicinity of the Strait of Gibraltar, but did not find any traces of flooded civilizations. Similarly, in 2006, archaeological excavations on the island of Crete also did not yield findings that could confirm the existence of Atlantis. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the myth of Atlantis continues to inspire researchers and history enthusiasts. For instance, in 2018, a team of scientists from Brown University proposed a new hypothesis that Atlantis could have been located not in the Mediterranean Sea, but in the Caribbean region. They based their theory on data about underwater structures that could be the remains of ancient settlements. However, this theory has not gained wide acceptance in scientific circles. Thus, the search for Atlantis continues, but all attempts to find it have so far been unsuccessful. The question of whether this civilization actually existed remains open and is a subject of debate among scientists and historians. The search for Atlantis has captivated researchers and history enthusiasts for over 2,000 years, beginning with Plato's first mention of this mythical continent in his dialogues. These searches have had a significant impact on both science and culture. For example, in the 19th century, when archaeology was just emerging as a science, many researchers sought physical evidence of Atlantis's existence, believing it could shed light on ancient civilizations. One such researcher was Henry Morgan, who in the 18th century proposed that Atlantis might be located in the Caribbean region, basing his theory on legends from local indigenous tribes about submerged lands. Scientific research in this direction often lacked the rigorous methods used today and frequently relied on speculation rather than facts. However, with the development of archaeology and underwater science, more serious attempts to find traces of Atlantis began. For instance, in 2005, a group of researchers led by Dr. Martinez from the University of Florida discovered underwater structures off the coast of Cuba, which many began calling underwater pyramid formations. These stone structures generated significant interest as they resembled remnants of ancient constructions. However, subsequent research did not confirm their artificial origin, and most scientists concluded that they were natural formations. In 2017, a group of researchers discovered strange underwater formations near the Bermuda Islands, which also sparked debates about a possible connection to Atlantis. Underwater structures consisting of rows of stone blocks could resemble remnants of ancient architecture, but their origin remains uncertain. Some researchers, such as Dr. Gray, argue that these formations could be the result of natural erosion. No less intriguing is the case of a submerged city discovered off the coast of Japan in 2013. This discovery attracted attention due to its unusual forms, which had no counterparts in known archaeological finds. While some researchers link these structures to Atlantis, others suggest they could simply be natural formations. A significant development in the search for Atlantis was the scientific research conducted on the island of Crete in 2005, where archaeologists discovered remnants of the Minoan civilization. These findings led to a re-evaluation of hypotheses about Atlantis's possible connection to this culture. The Minoans, who lived on Crete, built complex palaces and had a developed trade network, which could have been a prototype for the power described by Plato. It is important to note that the Minoan civilization disappeared around 1450 BCE, which coincides with the time frame mentioned by Plato. This discovery gave new impetus to discussions about where Atlantis might have been located. There are also theories that Atlantis could have been not a single civilization, but several different ones that disappeared in different historical periods. This hypothesis is based on the fact that many ancient cultures, such as the Hittites and ancient Egyptians, also disappeared due to natural disasters or internal conflict. Scientific research in this area continues, and each new discovery can change our understanding of ancient civilizations. For example, in 2018, researchers from Brown University used underwater drones to survey the floor of the Atlantic Ocean and discovered structures that might be remnants of submerged settlements. These findings, although they do not confirm the existence of Atlantis, provide food for thought about how civilizations could have disappeared underwater. There are also cultural consequences of the search for Atlantis. The myth of Atlantis has become the basis for numerous books, films, and scientific works. For instance, James Cameron's novel Avatar is inspired by ideas about lost civilizations. This cultural interpretation shows how the myth of submerged lands continues to live in our consciousness, even if concrete evidence of their existence remains elusive. In conclusion, the search for Atlantis remains one of the most intriguing questions in archaeology and history. Despite the lack of specific evidence, it continues to inspire scientists and researchers, as well as enrich our culture. Interest in Atlantis never wanes, and perhaps in the future, new technologies and research methods will help shed light on this mysterious question. The legend of Atlantis has had a profound influence on literature, art, and scientific research, and this influence continues to this day. Since Plato first described Atlantis in his dialogues, the idea of a sunken continent has captivated writers and artists who have sought to interpret it in their works. For instance, Edgar Allan Poe's novel The Dream of Atlantis, written in 1840, was one of the first artistic works to depict the lost civilization as a symbol of lost wisdom and cultural traditions. In the 20th century, the influence of the Atlantis legend became even more pronounced. Its motifs can be seen in works such as James Cameron's Atlantis: The Lost World, which uses the image of a utopian civilization to create an engaging narrative. The legend of Atlantis has also inspired numerous artistic works, such as the paintings of Alphonse Mucha, who attempted to convey the spirit of utopia, an idealized past, in his art. Many artists have used the images of Atlantis as a metaphor to express their thoughts on current social and political issues, indicating that the legend of the lost civilization is not just a myth, but a powerful symbol used to discuss contemporary topics. The spread of the Atlantis legend across various cultures and eras demonstrates the universality of this idea. For example, in Hindu mythology, there are references to sunken lands, such as Lemuria, which are associated with a lost civilization. In Chinese mythology, there are also references to sunken continents, indicating the widespread presence of this theme in the worldview of various peoples. For instance, many scientists continue to investigate possible historical prototypes of Atlantis, linking them to real civilizations such as the Minoan culture on Crete or the Hittite civilization. These studies help to better understand not only the history of ancient peoples, but also how mythology can influence the perception of culture and history. In the 21st century, interest in Atlantis has not waned. New technologies such as satellite imagery and underwater research are opening new horizons for the search for possible traces of this mythical civilization. For example, in 2020, a team of researchers from the University of Madrid discovered underwater structures off the coast of Spain that resembled the ruins of buildings. Although there are no definitive proofs, such discoveries continue to fuel interest in the Atlantis myth and encourage scientists to conduct new research. It serves as a source of inspiration for creating new stories and characters, underscoring its relevance in the modern world. For example, games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey incorporate elements of Atlantis mythology, adding a touch of fantasy to historical events. This shows how the myth of Atlantis continues to live in our culture, even if its historical foundation remains uncertain. Thus, the influence of the Atlantis legend extends far beyond scientific research, touching various aspects of culture and art. It remains an active topic for discussion and interpretation, remaining a mystery that inspires both scientists and creators around the world. This myth serves as a bridge between the past and the present, opening doors to new interpretations and research. Theories about the extraterrestrial origin of Atlantis are gaining increasing popularity in scientific and pseudoscientific circles. Some researchers claim that Plato might not have been describing a mere utopian civilization, but rather contact with extraterrestrial beings who brought knowledge and technology to the human world. For instance, in the book The Lost World of Atlantis, researcher Graham Hancock proposes the idea that Atlantis could have been a result of interaction with more advanced civilizations existing outside of Earth. This concept is based on the assumption that ancient people could have accessed technologies that were beyond their reach at the time. Interestingly, some archaeological findings, such as underwater structures off the coast of Japan, have sparked debates about whether ancient civilizations possessed more advanced technologies than previously thought. In 2009, a group of scientists discovered underwater stone structures in the Pacific Ocean that resembled building ruins. This discovery sparked discussions about the possibility of sunken civilizations that could be linked to the myth of Atlantis. Meanwhile, the science of extraterrestrial life is actively developing. For example, in space, searches for exoplanets that could support life are ongoing. In 2020, the Earth Transit Telescope discovered an exoplanet named Terra, located in the habitable zone of its star. Scientists suggest that life could exist in various forms, from simple organisms to highly advanced civilizations. In recent years, active research has begun on the possible existence of life on Europa, a moon of Jupiter. Additionally, exoplanets in the habitable zone of their stars are of interest. For example, the exoplanet Like was discovered thousands of light years from Earth and may have conditions suitable for life. Research shows that extraterrestrial civilizations could exist in various forms and conditions, from planets with high temperatures to icy worlds like Europa. The legend of Atlantis can serve as an example of how ancient people tried to explain the world around them using myths and legends. This shows that our understanding of life and civilizations, both on Earth and beyond, continues to evolve. Ultimately, theories about the extraterrestrial origin of Atlantis have become an important part of contemporary scientific discourse, offering new ideas and possibilities for research. It is important to note that such theories require rigorous criticism and verification, but they also open new horizons for understanding our place in the universe. For example, searches for extraterrestrial life on planets similar to Earth could lead to discoveries that change our understanding of life in the cosmos. In conclusion, the myth of Atlantis and the search for extraterrestrial life are connected not only through legends, but also through humanity's desire to understand whether life exists beyond Earth. Scientific research on the existence of Atlantis continues to generate interest among scholars and history enthusiasts. One of the most well-known theories suggests that Atlantis could have been located on the island of Santorini in the Aegean Sea. Archaeological excavations on this island, particularly in the area of the ancient city of Akrotiri, have confirmed the presence of a developed civilization that was destroyed by a powerful volcanic eruption around 3,600 years ago. This event could have served as the basis for the myth of Atlantis, as described by Plato. 80 years ago in 1940, archaeologists began to investigate underwater structures off the coast of Bermuda, which also sparked new debates about the possibility of submerged civilizations in this region. Some researchers claimed that the underwater structures could be remnants of ancient buildings, while others believe they are natural formations. These investigations underscore that the myth of Atlantis continues to inspire scientists to make new discoveries and carry out research. The cultural and historical significance of the legend of Atlantis is immeasurable. It has become a symbol of utopia and an ideal society, as well as a warning about the risks of excessive pride and the desire for power. In art, for example, in Joseph Conrad's novel Heart of Darkness, the theme of colonialism and its destructive effects is explored, which resonates with the myth of Atlantis. The myth of Atlantis has also influenced contemporary research and cultural phenomena. For instance, in 1981, a popular book titled Atlantis, Myth or Reality was published by researcher Charles Berlitz. This book helped to revive interest in the topic of Atlantis and inspired a new generation of adventurers. In the 21st century, the myth of Atlantis continues to inspire filmmakers, video game creators, and artists. For example, in the 2001 film Atlantis: The Lost Empire, produced by Disney, the story follows a group of adventurers seeking to find the lost continent. This interpretation of the myth attracts the attention of young people and encourages them to explore history and mythology. It is also worth noting that contemporary research in archaeology and geology continues to challenge traditional views of ancient civilizations. For example, their level of development. Importantly, the myth of Atlantis remains relevant in contemporary scientific discourse, highlighting humanity's need to find answers to questions about our past. This legend serves not only as a source of inspiration for artists and writers, but also as a stimulus for scientists seeking to unravel the mysteries of ancient civilizations. Research continues, and each new discovery brings us closer to understanding how the myth of Atlantis intertwines with human history. For example, findings in the region of the Greek and Turkish coasts may provide new clues about how ancient societies looked and how they interacted with each other. In the end, despite the debates and uncertainties, the myth of Atlantis remains an important element of our cultural heritage, generating interest and inspiration for future generations. The lines of Nazca are mysterious geoglyphs located on the Nazca Plateau in Peru. These enormous drawings, visible only from the air, cover an area of approximately 500 square kilometers and include images of various figures, including animals, plants, and geometric shapes. The first research on the lines began in the 1920s when archaeologist Tony Houston documented some of these images. However, the true popularity and interest in them emerged after the first airplanes flew over the plateau in the 1930s, revealing these unique works of art to the world. Today, there are more than 800 lines and 13,000 geoglyphs created over various periods between 1900 BCE and 300 BCE. Scientists have not yet reached a consensus on the purpose of these lines. One of the most widely accepted theories suggests that the geoglyphs were related to astronomical observations. For example, some researchers, such as archaeologist Maria Reich, believed that the lines pointed to significant astronomical events like equinoxes and solar eclipses. Other scientists, including anthropologist José Carlos Merchant, proposed that these geoglyphs served as sites for ritualistic cults where ancient peoples performed ceremonies related to fertility and the worship of gods. In this context, the Nazca Lines could have been markers or paths leading to sacred places. There is also a theory that the geoglyphs were used for navigation, helping travelers orient themselves in the vast desert landscape. However, this hypothesis is questionable, considering that many lines lead nowhere and do not connect important points. The cultural and historical significance of the Nazca Lines cannot be overstated. They represent a unique heritage of an ancient civilization that inhabited this plateau. The lines also serve as a symbol of the complex and diverse beliefs of the peoples who lived in this region. Research indicates that the lines could be connected to the Nazca culture, which developed in this area from the 1st to the 5th centuries CE. An important aspect is that despite the differences in hypotheses, all of them emphasize the high level of cultural and technical development of the Nazca people. Additionally, the Nazca Lines attract tourists and researchers from around the world, contributing to the development of the local economy and the preservation of the cultural heritage of the region. In 2006, UNESCO included the Nazca Lines in the list of World Heritage Sites, further underscoring their historical importance. The lines also serve as the subject of modern research aimed at studying the methods of their creation and purpose. For example, in 2016, a group of scientists from the University of Lima used drones for detailed mapping of the geoglyphs, providing new data on their structure and possible purpose. This discovery may shed light on how ancient peoples united their efforts to create such massive works of art. The Nazca Lines continue to be a mystery, inspiring scientists and tourists to explore their secrets and consider them in the context of broader cultural and historical processes. Ultimately, they serve not only as objects of admiration, but also as an essential element in the study of ancient civilizations, their beliefs, and traditions. There are numerous theories regarding the religious and astronomical purposes of the Nazca Lines, each offering a unique perspective on these enigmatic geoglyphs. For instance, archaeologist Maria Reich, who has dedicated much time to studying the lines, proposed that the geoglyphs might have been connected to astronomical events, such as equinoxes and solar eclipses. She noted that some lines are oriented towards the horizon at points where the sun rises and sets on specific days of the year, suggesting their possible use in astronomical observations. On the other hand, anthropologist José Carlos Merchant asserts that the lines could have served as ritual paths leading to sacred places where local residents performed rituals related to fertility and the worship of gods. This hypothesis is based on the fact that the lines often intersect with sites that could have been centers of cult activity. Furthermore, some researchers suggest that the lines might have served a navigational function, helping ancient travelers orient themselves in the desert, although this hypothesis is criticized because many lines do not have an obvious connection between important points. Regarding the methods and tools used to create the Nazca Lines, there are also many hypotheses. Scientists suggest that the ancient Nazca used simple but effective tools for designing and digging the lines. Some researchers believe they might have used systems of long ropes to create straight lines, while others propose the use of simple tools, such as sticks or stones, to deepen the lines into the soil. There is also a theory that mirrors were used to create precise images over long distances, which could explain how ancient builders achieved such accuracy in their work. An important aspect of studying the Nazca Lines is the rituals and ceremonies that might have been associated with them. It is believed that some lines were used for rituals related to the worship of natural gods. For example, rituals could have been conducted on the days of the equinoxes when ancient peoples would gather to celebrate the change of seasons and ensure a good harvest. This hypothesis is supported by findings of cult objects and remains of sacrifices near the geoglyphs. Archaeologists have discovered traces of sacrifices, which could include both animal and plant materials, indicating the presence of complex rituals related to the lines. Additionally, ceramic artifacts found in some places could have been used for ritual purposes. Some scientists suggest that the lines could have served not only as ritual paths but also as gathering places for local tribes to exchange information, discuss important issues, and conduct ceremonies. Thus, each new discovery reveals new aspects of their significance and helps us understand how ancient peoples perceived and interacted with their environment. In this context, the Nazca Lines become not just geographical objects but important elements of historical and cultural heritage that continue to attract the attention of researchers and tourists from around the world. The lines of Nazca are located in the Nazca Desert, where climatic conditions favor their preservation. The desert climate, with low rainfall and strong winds, ensures minimal water erosion and vegetation impact on the geoglyphs. The average annual rainfall in this region is only about 20 millimeters, making it one of the driest places on the planet. The lack of rain and moisture prevents the lines from being washed away and decomposed, as they were carved into the top layer of soil. Moreover, constant dry winds prevent sand and small particles from accumulating on the geoglyphs, preserving their clear outlines. As a result, many of the lines and figures have remained in virtually their original state, despite being created more than 2,000 years ago. However, despite the favorable climatic conditions, the Nazca Lines face modern threats. The main one is human activity. The development of agriculture and infrastructure in the region has a negative impact on the preservation of the geoglyphs. For example, deforestation for pastures and fields leads to changes in the ecosystem and increased soil erosion, which can threaten the lines. Additionally, cases of vandalism, where tourists or local residents cause damage to the geoglyphs, are becoming more frequent. These actions can include creating new paths that cross ancient lines or leaving tracks from vehicles on their surfaces. Modern efforts to preserve the Nazca Lines include both scientific and legal measures. In 1986, the Peruvian authorities created the Nazca and Paracas National Park, which covers a large part of the territory where the geoglyphs are located. This park protects the lines from further destruction and monitors their condition. As part of the Cultural Heritage Protection Program, Archaeologists and researchers regularly conduct monitoring and restoration of the lines. They use modern technologies such as aerial photography and drone technology to track changes and develop strategies for their protection. International organizations such as UNESCO also participate in efforts to protect the Nazca Lines. In 2001, the lines were inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, which has drawn additional attention to their protection. This recognition helps attract funding and international support for the preservation of these unique objects. Within the preservation project, scientists study not only the nature of the lines, but also how local communities can participate in their protection, ensuring sustainable development of the region. Despite all these efforts, the Nazca Lines remain at risk due to climate change. Increases in temperature and possible changes in weather patterns can affect the ecosystem of the region, which in turn can impact the preservation of the geoglyphs. For example, changes in rainfall can lead to the growth of new vegetation cover, which can damage the lines. Long-term research is needed to better understand how climate change can affect these ancient monuments and what measures should be taken to protect them. The preservation of the Nazca Lines requires a comprehensive approach that combines scientific research, local initiatives, and international cooperation. Considering that the lines represent not only Peru's cultural heritage but also that of humanity, their protection is a task for everyone. It is important for the public to recognize the value of these objects and participate in their protection. The Nazca Lines are unique artifacts that provide us with valuable information about ancient cultures and their interaction with nature. Their preservation requires constant attention and effort so that future generations can continue to marvel at this extraordinary part of our past. In this context, the Nazca Lines remain not just historical objects, but symbols of cultural heritage that must be protected for future research and admiration. The astronomical alignments of the lines at Nazca represent one of the most mysterious and intriguing features of these geoglyphs. Many of them are precisely oriented towards significant astronomical events, such as sunrises and sunsets. For example, the line known as the Sun is aligned in such a way that on the summer solstice, the sun rises exactly over one of its ends. This indicates that the ancient Nazca cultures possessed substantial knowledge of celestial bodies and their movements. Scientists believe that these alignments could have been used to create calendars that aided in agriculture, determining the time for planting and harvesting. Research shows that ancient cultures in South America, similar to the Incas, developed astronomical knowledge that was crucial for their survival and religious practices. Archaeologists have found that many of these cultures used star observations for navigation and timekeeping. For instance, in the Andean mountains, there were observatories where astronomers tracked stars and planets. This demonstrates that astronomical knowledge was an integral part of their culture and daily life. According to some hypotheses, the lines at Nazca also had ritual significance. Researchers suggest that the geoglyphs could have been used in ceremonies related to the cosmos, such as celebrating solar and lunar cycles. Perhaps the ancient peoples conducted rituals to implore gods for a good harvest, or to protect themselves from natural disasters. It is also proposed that these alignments served as guides for pilgrims who came to sacred places nearby. Some scientists point out the presence of symbols connected to the animal world, which may also have astronomical significance. For example, figures depicting animals might indicate constellations or celestial bodies that held special meaning for the local inhabitants. This suggests that astronomical knowledge was not only practical, but also had a deep cultural and spiritual foundation. Thus, the astronomical alignments of the lines at Nazca provide a window into the world of ancient knowledge and beliefs, showing how people of the past interacted with nature and the cosmos. These lines are not just graphic images on the ground. They were a link between the earthly and the celestial, between everyday life and the spiritual world. They illustrate how ancient cultures used their astronomical knowledge to organize their lives and conduct rituals, underscoring the importance of observing celestial phenomena in their society. The methods and tools used to create the Nazca Lines represent an intriguing combination of simplicity and ingenuity. Archaeologists have discovered that the Incas and other cultures used simple tools such as wooden stakes and ropes to create these geoglyphs. With these means, they could accurately mark lines on the ground using techniques similar to those employed in construction. For example, one of the methods involved creating long ropes stretched between 2 points, which allowed them to precisely follow the intended course. Special markers and landmarks, such as stones and trees, were also used to maintain direction while working on the geoglyphs. Regarding the rituals and ceremonies associated with the Nazca Lines, researchers highlight several key aspects. Some scholars suggest that the lines were used for ceremonies related to astronomical events, such as the solstice and equinox. During these rituals, local residents could perform ceremonies aimed at appeasing the gods and ensuring a good harvest. For instance, on days of sunrise, people would gather on the lines to make sacrifices or perform other ritual actions. It is also believed that the lines served as guides for pilgrims who came to sacred places to participate in these ceremonies. The cultural and historical significance of the Nazca Lines cannot be overstated. They not only represent unique geographical structures, but also serve as evidence of a complex system of beliefs and practices of ancient peoples. The lines reflect their deep connection to nature and astronomy, showing how ancient people perceived their environment and interacted with it. Research indicates that Nazca was an important cultural center where various traditions and customs intersected. There is also evidence that the Nazca Lines were part of a broader network of ritual sites that connected different cultures and peoples of South America. This underscores that the lines were not just geographical objects, but played a significant role in the social and cultural life of the local inhabitants. For example, in some cases, the lines were connected to mythology and legends that were passed down through generations. An important aspect is that the Nazca Lines continue to spark interest and scholarly debate. Scientific research conducted in recent decades has shown that the lines may have not only practical, but also symbolic significance. This opens new horizons for understanding Nazca culture and its place in human history. The lines remain a mystery, but their study offers a glimpse into the world of ancient beliefs and practices that were the foundation of these people's lives. Possible rituals and ceremonies associated with the Nazca Lines represent a unique topic for study. Archaeologists and anthropologists suggest that these geoglyphs could have been used for various ceremonies related to natural cycles, particularly astronomical events. For example, the lines could have served as markers for observing the solstices and equinoxes, as evidenced by their placement and shape. On these days, local residents likely gathered at the lines to perform rituals aimed at appeasing gods and ensuring a good harvest. Historical sources describe how in ancient times people would offer sacrifices, such as food and ceramic items, to placate higher powers. Some researchers note that the Nazca Lines may have had astronomical significance, as they precisely indicate the sunrise and sunset on specific days of the year. This could have helped ancient peoples accurately determine the time for planting and harvesting, which was crucial for their agriculture. The lines may be connected to calendar systems used for tracking time and planning rituals. For instance, on the days of the vernal equinox, when day and night are equal, residents could have conducted special ceremonies marking the beginning of a new agricultural cycle. Regarding religious practices, the lines may have been associated with beliefs in deities controlling natural phenomena. In Nazca mythology, there could have been deities responsible for rain and harvest, and the lines served as places of worship for these gods. This hypothesis is based on the fact that the lines often lead to significant geographical objects or other ritual sites. The cultural and historical significance of the Nazca Lines extends beyond simple aesthetic appreciation. These geoglyphs are evidence of a complex system of beliefs and practices of ancient peoples. Each line could have had its own meaning, reflecting various aspects of the lives of local residents. They served not only as ritual objects, but also as elements that united the community. Research shows that the Nazca Lines were part of a broader network of ritual sites and practices that intersected with other cultures of South America. This underscores that the lines were not isolated objects, but an essential part of the social and cultural context of the region. Moreover, the Nazca Lines offer a window into the world of ancient technologies and methods used to create them. They demonstrate how people in ancient times interacted with nature, using its elements for their rituals and ceremonies. These geoglyphs can be considered symbols of human creativity and the desire to understand the surrounding world. There are various theories about how exactly the ancient inhabitants used the lines in their practices, and each theory reveals new aspects of their culture. Thus, the Nazca Lines continue to attract the interest of researchers and tourists, serving not only as objects of study but also as cultural heritage. Their study helps to gain a deeper understanding not only of Nazca culture but also of broader aspects of pre-Columbian history in South America. The lines remain an important research object, raising many questions about the lives and beliefs of the people who inhabited this region. These geoglyphs are not only historical monuments, but also part of a living culture that continues to influence contemporary society. Among the numerous theories related to the Nazca Lines, one of the most debated concerns their possible extraterrestrial origin. This hypothesis emerged in the mid-20th century when archaeologists and ufologists began analyzing the massive geoglyphs from the perspective of their potential use as markers for extraterrestrials. Fantasies about the lines, serving as navigational aids for UFOs, gained popularity through documentaries and books, sparking widespread public interest. Scientific research, however, does not support this theory, as there is no compelling evidence of interaction between ancient civilizations and extraterrestrial beings. Nevertheless, some researchers continue to search for signs of extraterrestrial life in various corners of our planet, including the South American deserts where the Nazca Lines are located. Scientists study extreme conditions to understand where and how extraterrestrial civilizations might have existed. For example, places like Martian craters or vast underground oceans become objects of serious study. Conditions similar to those on Earth could create a suitable environment for life on other planets. Scientific missions such as the Mars 2020 mission are aimed at searching for signs of life on Mars, which could provide insight into potential extraterrestrial civilizations. This underscores the importance of studying not only the Nazca Lines, but the entire system within which we can search for life beyond our planet. Scientific data on planets in the habitable zones of their stars indicate the possibility of liquid water, which is a critical factor for life. Scientific research also focuses on exoplanets, such as Kepler 186f, which is in the habitable zone of its star and could support life. These conditions may resemble those that existed on early Earth when life was just beginning to form. The pyramids of Giza, situated on the Giza Plateau near Cairo, are among the most famous and mysterious architectural structures in the world. The great archaeologists still cannot agree on how the ancient Egyptians managed to construct these monumental buildings, given the lack of modern tools. Various theories exist, ranging from the use of labor forces to hypotheses about the involvement of extraterrestrials, who, according to some, could have been involved in their creation. For instance, one of the most widely accepted theories suggests that a system of inclined ramps was used to lift heavy stone blocks to great heights. Research indicates that thousands of workers were needed to move blocks weighing up to 2.5 tons. Some scientists believe that the pyramids served not only as tombs for pharaohs, but also as astronomical observatories, as their orientation and alignment with certain stars indicate a deep understanding of astronomy by the ancient Egyptians. Other researchers propose that the pyramids had ritual functions related to the afterlife and worship of gods. The cultural significance of the pyramids is hard to overestimate. They symbolize the power and might of the ancient Egyptian civilization, as well as its high achievements in architecture and engineering. The pyramids attract millions of tourists each year, confirming their status as one of the 7 wonders of the world. Additionally, discoveries made near the pyramids continue to amaze researchers as archaeologists periodically uncover new artifacts that shed light on the lives of the ancient Egyptians. For example, in 2019, a hidden chamber was discovered inside the Great Pyramid, reigniting interest in its internal structure and perhaps in new mysteries associated with this magnificent construction. There are numerous theories about the religious and astronomical purposes of the pyramids of Giza. Many researchers believe that the pyramids served not only as tombs for pharaohs, but also as places of worship connected to cults of the afterlife. For instance, ancient Egyptians, as is known, attributed great importance to stars, and some scholars believe that the pyramids could have been used for astronomical observations, which is supported by findings related to ancient Egyptian calendars. Furthermore, this underscores the importance of ritual practices that could have taken place near or inside the pyramids. Regarding the methods and tools used to construct these monumental structures, archaeologists propose several hypotheses. One of them suggests the use of simple but effective tools, such as wooden and stone chisels, as well as copper tools for stoneworking. Recent research indicates that the Egyptians could have used specialized tools for drilling and cutting, which would have allowed them to create precise and beautiful details. Logistics played a significant role in the construction. The stone blocks used for the pyramids were likely transported from quarries by special boats along the Nile, and then moved over land using wooden rollers and sledges. Archaeologists also suggest that construction work could have been organized as large communal projects, with local residents working for the benefit of the pharaohs, reflecting the social structure of the time. During this construction, special ceremonies could have been held, symbolizing the unity of the people and belief in the afterlife. For example, some researchers point to the existence of sacrifices which could have been made in honor of gods intended to ensure the protection and blessing of the pharaoh in his afterlife. One such ceremony could have involved the kindling of a ritual fire used to sanctify the site where the pyramid was to be built. Facts about rituals and ceremonies related to the pyramids continue to amaze and attract the attention of both scholars and tourists, as each new discovery can add a new page to the history of ancient Egypt. For example, in 2020, archaeologists found near the pyramids a multitude of small artifacts, including offerings left in honor of the gods, which confirms the importance of rituals in the construction of these monuments. The methods and tools used for the construction of the pyramids of Giza have sparked great interest among scholars. Ancient Egyptians used copper tools for cutting and processing stone, although copper was relatively soft and its use was limited to specific tasks. For larger tasks, they employed stone and wooden chisels, as well as simple mechanisms such as levers and pulleys. Research indicates that stone blocks weighing several tons could be moved on wooden sleds, lubricated with water to reduce friction. This discovery fundamentally alters our understanding of how construction work was organized in practice. It is likely that other mechanisms, such as inclined planes and ramps, were also used to lift heavy blocks to the required height. Archaeologists also suggest that a large workforce consisting of local residents was employed for these tasks, reflecting the interconnectedness between social structures and construction. Rituals and ceremonies associated with the pyramids played a significant role in their construction. For example, rituals could include sacrifices in honor of gods to ensure protection and blessing for the pharaoh. One such ritual, according to some sources, involved consecrating the construction site by lighting a ritual fire, symbolizing the unity of the people and their belief in the afterlife. These ceremonies not only emphasized the importance of building the pyramids, but also strengthened social cohesion. Furthermore, the cultural and historical significance of the pyramids of Giza cannot be overstated. They have become a symbol of ancient Egyptian civilization and its achievements in architecture and engineering, as well as a reflection of the ancient Egyptians' belief in the afterlife. Besides, the awe and respect these monuments inspire are not only due to their immense size, but also to the cultural and historical aspects they embody. For instance, the Great Pyramid stands at 146 meters in height, making it one of the tallest structures in the ancient world. The pyramids also possess unique features, such as a complex system of chambers and corridors inside designed for storing wealth and ensuring the safety of pharaohs after death. Every element in the pyramid's construction, from its shape to its layout, was meticulously planned and executed, highlighting the advanced knowledge and skills of ancient Egyptians in astronomy and mathematics. Astronomical alignments of the pyramids of Giza represent one of the most mysterious and fascinating areas of research. For instance, the axis of the Great Pyramid is oriented towards the north with an accuracy of a few angular minutes, indicating the builder's profound astronomical knowledge. Ancient Egyptians likely used star and solar cycle observations to determine the precise direction. There is evidence that they tracked the movement of stars like Sirius and used it as a signal to start the new year and agricultural work. This knowledge was vital for their agrarian economy and ritual practices. For example, the heliacal rising of Sirius coincided with the Nile's flood, symbolizing the beginning of a new agricultural cycle and being linked to rituals aimed at appeasing gods and ensuring fertility. Moreover, in other ancient cultures, such as the Maya and Sumerians, there were also complex astronomical practices, including the creation of calendars based on celestial observations. These knowledge allowed them to predict solar and lunar eclipses, which were used in rituals and ceremonies. For example, the Maya used their astronomical knowledge to conduct sacrifices in accordance with cosmic events, emphasizing their connection to higher powers. In Egypt, astronomical alignments of pyramids, such as alignment with zodiacal constellations, could also serve for rituals related to the afterlife and worship of gods. These rituals might include the consecration of pyramids when specific stars or planets were in certain positions in the sky, underscoring the importance of astronomy in the religious beliefs of ancient Egyptians. There are suggestions that such astronomical events were used to determine the dates of key ceremonies, such as the coronation of pharaohs or the celebration of the solar festival. Thus, astronomy not only served practical purposes, but was also imbued with spiritual significance, linking earthly affairs with cosmic order. Theories about the extraterrestrial origin of the pyramids of Giza sparked numerous debates and interest among researchers and enthusiasts of mysteries. Some theorists claim that such monumental structures could have been built with technologies beyond our reach, or even with the help of extraterrestrials. Although these ideas are controversial, they have driven scientific research into the possibility of extraterrestrial life. For instance, NASA is actively engaged in the search for exoplanets in habitable zones where conditions could be suitable for life. In recent years, astronomers have discovered thousands of planets orbiting other stars, some of which may be located in the zone where water can exist in liquid form, a key factor for life as we know it. Additionally, scientists are studying places like Jupiter's and Saturn's moons, Europa and Enceladus, where oceans may be hidden beneath icy shells, potentially teeming with microorganisms. A crucial aspect of the search for extraterrestrial civilizations is the study of exobiotic signatures, chemical traces that may indicate the presence or activity of life. For example, telescopes like Hubble and the upcoming James Webb will examine the atmospheres of exoplanets for gases such as oxygen and methane, which could suggest biological activity. Astrobiologists also consider conditions on Mars, where traces of water have been found, and on Venus, where there may be clouds containing microbial life. In the context of discussing extraterrestrial civilizations, it is worth mentioning that even on Earth, extremophile organisms exist that can survive in the harshest conditions, opening new horizons for understanding life in other corners of the universe. For example, bacteria found in hot springs and subglacial lakes demonstrate that life can exist in conditions previously deemed inhospitable. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in the early 2000s on the seabed of the Aegean Sea near the island of Antikythera, is one of the most enigmatic artifacts of antiquity. This mechanism, dating back to the 1st century BC, is considered the first known analog computer, used for determining astronomical events and a kind of calendar. Its complex construction includes numerous gears which, according to researchers, could calculate the positions of celestial bodies and predict solar and lunar eclipses. However, the purpose of the Antikythera mechanism remains a matter of debate. Some scholars consider it an astronomical instrument used for navigation, while others suggest it might have been used for creating astronomical tables or even for teaching astronomy. A key aspect of studying the mechanism is its technological level. It demonstrates an extraordinary mastery of mechanics and engineering skills that seem to have been beyond the capabilities of ancient Greeks. This challenges traditional notions of technological development in antiquity. Research has shown that the mechanism employed a concept that later appeared in more advanced mechanisms, such as clocks and various devices of the Renaissance. For instance, an analysis of the gears in the mechanism revealed that their precision and complexity matched technologies that only emerged in the Middle Ages. This raises the question of how and where the knowledge necessary for its creation was acquired. Furthermore, the Antikythera mechanism has significant cultural and historical importance. It symbolizes the lost achievements of ancient Greek science and technology, highlighting the high level of intellect and craftsmanship reached in ancient times. The individual details of the mechanism, such as the mysterious inscriptions on its surface, remain unexplained, making it a constant object of interest for historians and archaeologists. There are several theories regarding the astronomical and navigational purposes of the Antikythera mechanism. One of the most widely accepted hypotheses suggests that the mechanism was used to predict astronomical events such as solar and lunar eclipses, which could have had practical value for sailors relying on celestial bodies for navigation. Another theory proposes that the device was used to create astronomical tables, helping farmers determine the optimal times for planting and harvesting. However, to confirm these theories, more data is needed on how the mechanism worked and which specific events it could predict. Regarding the methods and tools used in its creation, it is assumed that ancient Greeks had access to advanced metalworking technologies and produced parts through casting and mechanical processing. Some researchers point to the possible use of simple measuring instruments such as calipers and protractors to achieve such precision in gear manufacturing. It is also worth noting that the creation of the mechanism could have involved knowledge from various scientific fields, such as astronomy, mathematics, and mechanics, highlighting the high level of education and engineering thinking in ancient Greek society. No less intriguing is the question of rituals and ceremonies that may have been associated with the use of the Antikythera mechanism. Given its astronomical nature, it is not unlikely that it was used in religious rituals related to the worship of deities associated with celestial phenomena. For instance, some researchers believe that predictions of eclipses could have played a role in planning religious holidays or sacrifices, underscoring the interaction between science and religion in ancient Greek society. An important aspect is that the mechanism could have been used not only for practical purposes, but also as a symbol of knowledge and power, demonstrating the achievements of civilization and its connection to higher forces. Research continues, and scientists continue to uncover new clues about its purpose and possible functions. For example, recent work has shown that the mechanism could also have been used to track the cycles of the Olympic Games, highlighting its multifunctionality and complexity. The methods and tools used in the creation of the Antikythera mechanism represent an outstanding example of the advanced technologies of ancient Greeks. Archaeologists and historians suggest that the mechanism's components were made using casting and mechanical processing, ensuring the necessary precision. Specialized instruments such as calipers and protractors could have been employed to create the complex gear system, which had a unique design allowing it to track astronomical events. This is supported by findings that show traces of metalworking, including bronze and iron. Moreover, it is important to note that the creation of such a complex instrument required not only technical skills, but also deep knowledge in astronomy and mathematics. Considering its complexity, it is likely that the best minds of the time were involved in its construction. It is intriguing that the mechanism itself could have been connected to rituals associated with observing celestial phenomena. There are suggestions that it was used during religious ceremonies honoring astronomically related deities, such as Apollo. For instance, eclipses could have been perceived as omens, and their prediction with the Antikythera mechanism would have added significance to the rituals. This interplay between science and religion highlights the importance of astronomical observations in ancient Greek culture. The mechanism could have served practical purposes, but also symbolized knowledge and power, reflecting the achievements of civilization and its quest to understand the world around it. The historical significance of the Antikythera mechanism extends far beyond its technical specifications. It became a symbol of intellectual progress of its time. Research indicates that such mechanisms could have been the foundation for further scientific discoveries, influencing the development of astronomy in subsequent centuries. For example, its design anticipated many European mechanisms that appeared in the Middle Ages, including astronomical clocks and other navigational instruments. Astronomical alignments observed in ancient cultures held immense significance for both scientific and religious aspects of life. For instance, this was not merely an architectural marvel, but a reflection of deep astronomical knowledge that allowed the ancient Egyptians to predict the Nile's floods and determine the time for sowing. In Mesopotamia, astronomers used complex tables to track the movement of planets, enabling them to make predictions about the future, which in turn influenced political decisions and agricultural practices. The ancient Maya, on the other hand, created extensive calendars based on observations of solar and lunar cycles, allowing them to accurately determine the time for conducting religious rituals such as sacrifices. Customs related to astronomical alignments could include ceremonies timed to coincide with solstices and equinoxes, which were considered sacred moments in the annual cycle. For example, in Inca culture in Peru, the sun was considered a deity, and during the winter solstice, mass celebrations were held to appease the sun and ensure its return to the sky. These rituals not only strengthened faith but also united the society, emphasizing the importance of astronomy in their culture. Many ancient cultures viewed celestial phenomena as omens, and predictions of eclipses or other astronomical events could significantly impact public sentiment and even influence wars. It is important to note that knowledge of heavenly bodies and their movements did not remain confined to science. It intertwined with mythology and religion, creating a complex network of connections that reinforced social structures and determined daily life. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in 1900 on the bottom of the Aegean Sea, is a complex astronomical instrument that has sparked numerous theories, including speculations about its extraterrestrial origin. Dating back to the 1st century BC, this mechanism was used for calculating astronomical positions and predicting solar and lunar eclipses. Some researchers believe that its complexity and precision could indicate the influence of ancient technologies that may have been borrowed from extraterrestrial civilizations, or even the existence of highly advanced civilizations that left behind such artifacts. Scientific research using modern X-ray and computer analysis has shown that the mechanism contains more than 30 gears, which significantly exceeds the known technologies of the time. In the search for extraterrestrial life, astronomers focus on exoplanets located in the habitable zones of their stars, where conditions could be suitable for liquid water. For example, additionally, in our own solar system, places like Jupiter's moons Europa and Ganymede and Saturn's moon Enceladus are being studied, as they may harbor oceans beneath their icy crusts with conditions suitable for life. Science, however, One of the examples of ancient technologies that have sparked numerous questions and debates is the Baghdad battery, discovered in Iraq and dated to around the 3rd century AD. This device, consisting of a clay pot, a copper tube, and an iron rod, is believed to have been used to generate electric current, which would have been a significant breakthrough at the time. Some researchers claim that this device could have been used for electroplating, which could explain how ancient craftsmen processed metals and created complex artifacts. Theories about the purpose of the Baghdad battery range from practical uses in crafts to suggestions of its role in religious rituals or medical procedures. For instance, some believe it could have been used for healing, highlighting an interesting aspect of the interaction between science and medicine in antiquity. Beyond, they reflect the level of knowledge and engineering thought of their time, as well as the extent to which ancient civilizations understood physical processes. Comparisons with modern scientific achievements underscore that the skills used in creating such devices were not mere accidents, but rather the result of centuries of accumulated knowledge. Furthermore, this challenges traditional notions of the evolution of technologies and civilizations, as many scientific and technical discoveries could have been forgotten or undervalued in subsequent centuries. For example, in Egypt, complex methods were used for building pyramids, including the use of simple machines and mathematical calculations, which also attests to a high level of engineering thought. Ancient Romans created aqueducts that supplied water to cities up to 100 kilometers away, further evidence of their advanced technologies. These examples demonstrate that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge that continues to fascinate modern scientists and researchers. It is intriguing that in some cases ancient technologies were ahead of their time, raising questions about what other achievements might have been overlooked or forgotten. Comparisons of technologies across different eras also raise the question of how cultural and historical contexts influence the development of science and technology. For instance, in Mesopotamia, cuneiform writing and complex systems of calculation were used for record-keeping and trade, while in other regions, entirely different approaches might have developed. As a result, ancient technologies not only served practical purposes but also shaped cultural identities, created social structures, and influenced interactions between different peoples. Among the theories about the medical and religious purposes of ancient technologies, there are views that devices similar to the Baghdad battery could have been used in healing rituals. For instance, some researchers believe that the electrical current, possibly generated by this battery, could have been used to stimulate the nervous system, thereby alleviating pain or even accelerating healing. For example, in ancient Egypt, physicians used complex herbal mixtures and methods that were believed to have not only physical but also magical significance. In this context, technologies became part of broader cultural practices and rituals. For instance, in the Sumerian culture, there were rituals related to the worship of healing deities, which could involve the use of various tools and technologies, such as surgical instruments made of bronze and stone. These instruments were likely objects of special veneration, and their creation could have been accompanied by ceremonies emphasizing their sacred significance. Customs related to the medical use of technologies could vary from region to region. In ancient Greek medicine, for example, physicians used inhalers and devices for creating vapors, which also suggests a high level of understanding of medical processes. These methods could have been part of broader rituals aimed at healing, in which priests and other individuals with special knowledge also participated. Ayurveda, for example, includes not only physical treatment methods, but also philosophical concepts related to the harmony of the soul and body. This underscores that technologies were not isolated achievements, but were deeply integrated into social and cultural contexts. It is interesting to note that the tools used in various rituals could have been created using techniques that were later forgotten or undervalued. Complex metalworking methods, for example, could have been lost, and their significance and application could have evolved into myths and legends, which also challenges traditional notions of technological progress. Thus, technologies became not just tools, but symbols that carried cultural heritage and expressed the worldview of ancient people. For instance, in Mesopotamia, craftsmen employed simple tools such as stone and copper chisels, as well as grinding stones for material processing. The Sumerians were among the first to use clay to create tablets, on which knowledge and information were recorded. These tablets formed the basis for cuneiform, one of the earliest forms of writing in history. It is also worth noting that in ancient Egypt, more complex stoneworking techniques, including carving and polishing, were used to create both practical tools and decorative elements that served cultic purposes. In ancient Greece, more advanced technologies were employed, including water mills and aqueduct systems that supplied water to cities. These achievements not only facilitated agricultural development, but also improved sanitary conditions. For example, in ancient Egypt, before the construction of pyramids, rituals were performed to seek the blessing of gods, emphasizing the sacred nature of the process. In Sumerian culture, there were also rituals related to the consecration of tools used in agricultural work. These rituals often included sacrifices and special incantations intended to ensure the success of the work. For instance, Sumerians believed that a successful harvest depended on the alignment of stars and the performance of rituals. The cultural and historical significance of ancient technologies cannot be underestimated. Technologies such as the construction of temples and pyramids not only demonstrated engineering prowess, but also served as symbols of power and religious devotion. In ancient Rome, for example, aqueducts not only provided water supply, but also became symbols of imperial might. This underscores that technologies were an integral part of the cultural identity of peoples. In India, for instance, Ayurvedic practices, which combined medical and spiritual aspects, also illustrate how technologies influence concepts of health and well-being. These examples demonstrate that technologies were not just tools, but also significant elements that shaped the culture and identity of ancient societies. There are theories about the extraterrestrial origin of ancient technologies that have sparked great interest among scientists and enthusiasts. Some researchers claim that certain achievements, such as the construction of pyramids or the creation of complex astronomical instruments, could have been the result of contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations. This hypothesis has gained popularity thanks to authors like Erich von Däniken, who, in his book Remember the Future, proposed that ancient people could have received knowledge from aliens. However, the scientific community, on the other hand, emphasizes that many achievements of ancient civilizations can be explained by the evolution of knowledge and technologies accumulated over thousands of years. For instance, the construction of magnificent structures like Stonehenge or temples in Mesopotamia can be explained by the development of engineering knowledge and skills necessary for such tasks. Research in astronomy and mathematics shows that ancient cultures independently developed complex concepts such as solar and lunar calendars without any external influences. Nevertheless, the search for extraterrestrial life continues, and scientists actively study exoplanets and conditions that can support life. For example, the Kepler project has discovered thousands of planets outside our solar system, and among them are objects located in zones suitable for life. Conditions for the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations can vary. These could be planets with liquid water, suitable temperature, and an atmosphere capable of supporting life. It is also possible that conditions for life could exist even on moons, such as Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, where an ocean may be hidden under an icy crust. Scientists also consider the possibility of life existing in more exotic conditions, for example, on exoplanets with high temperature or pressure. These studies highlight that questions about extraterrestrial life and its influence on the development of human technologies remain open. Astronomers and biologists continue to study various aspects to understand if life similar to ours could arise in other corners of the universe. For example, the Mars 2020 mission is aimed at searching for signs of ancient life on the Red Planet, which could provide new data on possible forms of life beyond Earth. The Voynich Manuscript is a mysterious manuscript written in an unknown language and filled with illustrations that continue to spark debate among scholars. It was discovered in the early 20th century by antiquarian Wilfrid Voynich in Italy. The manuscript contains approximately 200 pages, divided into several sections: botanical illustrations, astronomical diagrams, and images of human figures in various poses. To this, one hypothesis suggests that the manuscript could have been created as a joke or even as an artificial work designed for entertainment purposes. Other researchers believe it might be a medical text describing herbs and their healing properties, as many illustrations resemble botanical drawings. Notably, the manuscript was written in the first half of the 16th century, and its style and content reflect the interests of the time when alchemy and medicine were at their peak. The cultural significance of the Voynich manuscript is immense. It is a unique artifact that attracts both specialists and enthusiasts of mysteries. The enigmatic nature of the manuscript has inspired numerous studies as well as artistic works, films, and books. Moreover, it has become a subject of study in the field of cryptography, where researchers attempt to uncover its secrets using modern technologies and algorithms. For instance, in 2017, a group of researchers employed machine learning methods to analyze the texts, but even this did not lead to a definitive breakthrough. The Voynich manuscript itself has become a symbol of unsolved historical mysteries, captivating minds and imaginations for many years. The text of the manuscript remains undeciphered, and each new attempt at deciphering it brings both new hopes and disappointments. One of the most intriguing aspects is that the manuscript was written using an alphabet that does not correspond to any known language, making its study even more complex. Traditionally, the Voynich manuscript is considered one of the most challenging puzzles in the world of books and manuscripts. 18 different undeciphered languages and codes have been proposed by scholars for its decipherment, but all attempts have so far been unsuccessful. This manuscript has become a cult object for cryptographers, historians, and lovers of mysteries, and each new discovery or hypothesis contributes to this endless story. Among the numerous theories about the purpose of the Voynich manuscript, particular attention is drawn to hypotheses about its medical and alchemical content. For instance, some researchers believe that the plant illustrations in the manuscript could represent recipes for making medicines. In the Middle Ages, interest in medicinal herbs was especially high, and many alchemists sought ways to heal using nature. The manuscript could have served as a botanical and medicinal reference, as many of the images resemble known plant species. For example, images of plants like arnica and ginseng, which were used in folk medicine, can be found. However, despite these illustrations, no texts in the manuscript have been matched with known medical treatises, leaving room for speculation. Furthermore, some researchers consider the manuscript as a possible alchemical text, containing hidden knowledge about the transformation of substances and the search for the philosopher's stone. Alchemists of that time used complex symbols and codes to conceal their secrets from the uninitiated. It is possible that the author of the manuscript employed similar methods, creating a mysterious encoding for their knowledge. The manuscript contains images of various vessels and tools that could have been used in alchemical processes such as distillation and extraction. These elements may indicate that the manuscript was intended for use in rituals or ceremonies related to alchemy, making it an important tool for practicing alchemists. Rituals and ceremonies associated with alchemy often involved complex ceremonies aimed at transforming materials and obtaining new substances. It is possible that the Voynich manuscript was part of such rituals, serving not only as a reference but also as a kind of guide for those seeking truth or striving for enlightenment. Some researchers even suggest that the manuscript could have been used in secret societies from which many transmutation knowledge originated. In this context, the Voynich manuscript becomes not just a book, but a powerful symbol of secret knowledge that alchemists sought. This makes it not only a subject of scientific interest, but also a cultural artifact around which myths and legends swirl. Additionally, there is a hypothesis that the manuscript was created using tools and methods characteristic of its time. For example, the author might have used special inks that changed color depending on the lighting, or applied complex methods of binding and page decoration. The manuscript contains pages with watermarks indicating the use of paper produced in Europe at the beginning of the 16th century. This suggests that the author had access to technologies that were modern for the time, adding another layer of complexity to the study of the manuscript. These facts underscore that the Voynich Manuscript is not just a literary work, but a complex cultural artifact that may reflect the multi-layered processes occurring in society at that time. For many researchers, this enigma seems unsolvable, but each new look at the manuscript opens up fresh perspectives, allowing us to speculate that it contains secrets waiting to be discovered. To create the Voynich manuscript, various methods and tools were likely employed, which were consistent with the technological level of the time. For instance, the author might have used special inks that changed color depending on the angle of illumination, adding intrigue and mystery to the text. This could have been achieved by adding natural dyes such as indigo or turmeric. It is also worth noting that the manuscript contains pages with watermarks, indicating the use of paper produced in Europe at the beginning of the 16th century. This suggests that the author had access to modern technologies of his time, allowing for the creation of high-quality materials. Additionally, complex methods of binding and page decoration could have been used, indicating a high level of skill and creativity on the part of the author. In the context of using the manuscript as an instrument for rituals and ceremonies, it is important to note that alchemy was not only a science, but also a philosophical teaching that included mystical elements. Rituals associated with alchemy often aimed not just at the transformation of substances, but also at the alteration of the consciousness of the practitioner. For example, many alchemists conducted ceremonies using special vessels and tools depicted on the pages of the manuscript. Some researchers suggest that the manuscript could have served not only as a reference guide, but also as a kind of roadmap for those seeking truth or enlightenment. Thus, the manuscript could have been part of broader mystical practices that existed in Europe during that period. The cultural and historical significance of the Voynich manuscript is difficult to overestimate. It is not only a unique artifact, but also reflects the spirit of the time when knowledge and secret teachings were on the border between science and magic. During the Renaissance, ideas about transmutation and the search for the philosopher's stone were at the center of alchemical practice. The manuscript can serve as an example of how knowledge was passed from generation to generation in conditions where access to information was limited, and understanding of nature and its laws was just beginning to form. Furthermore, the Voynich manuscript became a symbol of those knowledge that remained hidden from the general public and attracted the attention of both scholars and lovers of mysteries. In this context, the Voynich manuscript is not only a subject of scientific interest, but also a cultural artifact that continues to inspire and provoke debate among researchers eager to unravel its mysteries. In the past few decades, numerous theories have emerged surrounding the Voynich manuscript, including those suggesting its possible extraterrestrial origin. Some researchers propose that this mysterious book could have been created not on Earth, but as a result of contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. This hypothesis is based on the assumption that the language and symbols used in the manuscript have no counterparts in known human languages and may be the result of more complex, possibly extraterrestrial communication systems. It is important to note that this is not merely the fantasy of enthusiasts. Such ideas have received some support from astrobiologists and specialists in the search for extraterrestrial life. For instance, within the framework of the SETI Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence program, scientists actively study signals from space in the hope of finding evidence of the existence of intelligent beings beyond our planet. In this, scientists point to exoplanets located in habitable zones around stars as places where extraterrestrial civilizations might exist. These zones are areas where conditions could be suitable for life similar to Earth's. For example, planets like Kepler 452b have attracted astronomers' attention due to their Earth-like analogues and potential for liquid water. Additionally, there are places on our own Moon and Mars where underground water and conditions favorable for the existence of simple life forms may be present. Research into these objects using modern technologies such as rovers and orbital spacecraft continues, and each new discovery fuels interest in possible life forms beyond Earth. Therefore, if the Voynich Manuscript indeed has any connection to extraterrestrial technologies or knowledge, this could lead not only to scientific discoveries, but also to a new phase of discussions about humanity's place in the universe. Scientific research aimed at understanding the origin and content of the manuscript continues, and each new hypothesis opens doors to further research and debates. For example, recent studies using computer analysis have shown that the text could be generated by algorithms, which also raises questions about its creation and purpose. The Shroud of Turin is one of the most famous and controversial artifacts in the history of Christianity. It is a long piece of cloth believed to have been the burial shroud in which Jesus Christ was wrapped after his crucifixion. The shroud measures approximately 4.5 meters in length and about 1 meter in width. The surface of the cloth bears the image of a human body, which, according to religious belief, was crucified. However, scholars and historians continue to debate the authenticity of this artifact. One of the most widely accepted theories is that the shroud is a medieval forgery created in the 14th century. A radiocarbon dating analysis conducted in 1988 showed that samples of the cloth taken from its corners could date back to the period between 1260 and 1390 AD. However, proponents of the shroud's authenticity present numerous arguments in its favor, including the unique characteristics of the images on it. For instance, the shroud bears traces of blood, which some researchers believe correspond to the type of wounds inflicted during crucifixion. There are also theories that the image could have been created using an unknown science or technology that is not yet understood. Some scientists suggest that the image might have been created through the use of light or some form of energy field. The significance of the Shroud of Turin extends beyond its physical existence. It has become a symbol of faith for millions of people and an object of veneration and study. The shroud has attracted the attention not only of religious figures, but also of artists, philosophers, and scientists. For example, the Italian artist Salvador Dali was inspired by its image in his works. From a historical perspective, the shroud serves as a link between ancient traditions and modern concepts of religion and culture. In the mid-20th century, the shroud became the subject of extensive research when scientists began to use modern technologies such as X-rays and ultraviolet photography to study its structure and image. For example, the Shroud of Turin continues to be a source of debate and mystery, attracting the attention of both believers and skeptics, and remains an important element in the contemporary study of religion and history. The Shroud of Turin, which, according to many, is the burial shroud of Jesus Christ, has sparked numerous theories regarding its religious and historical significance. One popular hypothesis suggests that the shroud was used in rituals associated with burial in the 1st century AD and could symbolize the transition of the soul to the afterlife. Studies conducted at the end of the 20th century indicated that the image on the cloth could be the result of chemical reactions between the body and the cloth itself, although the exact mechanism remains a subject of debate. Scholars like Professor Julian Davidson argue that various methods, including the technique of dyeing, could have been used to create the Shroud of Turin. Some researchers, including Dr. According to historians, the shroud was already known in Christian communities by the 4th century, as evidenced by mentions in early texts. The key research shows that in ancient Jewish traditions, burial rites were surrounded by numerous ritual actions, such as washing and dressing the body, as well as the use of aromatic substances. In this context, the Shroud of Turin could have become a symbol of these rituals, reflecting beliefs about the sanctity and respect for the deceased. Meanwhile, Some scholars, such as Dr. Maria Lorenzo, assert that the shroud could have been created in the Middle Ages as part of religious practices aimed at strengthening faith in Christianity. Thus, in recent decades, experiments using modern methods such as radiocarbon dating have shown that the cloth was likely created in the 14th century, casting doubt on its authenticity as an artifact from the time of Christ. However, it is important to note that over the centuries, the shroud has become an object of veneration and a place of pilgrimage, and many believers consider it a sacred relic, significantly enhancing its symbolic significance in Christian tradition. In this context, the shroud continues to generate interest and attract attention not only from scholars but also from the general public, underscoring its cultural and religious importance. A notable detail is that in recent years, new research has been conducted to study microscopic traces that could shed light on the process of creating the image on the cloth, which could change our understanding of the artifact itself. The study of the Shroud of Turin has been a true enigma for scholars, as this relic is shrouded in numerous mysteries. It was created using fabrics, primarily linen, which were intricately woven with great skill. Specifically, radiocarbon dating conducted in 1988 established that the material dates back to the period between 1200 and 1300, which coincides with the time when the shroud first appeared in historical records. However, some researchers, such as Dr. Ian Wilson, argue that possible rituals associated with the shroud may indicate its earlier use in Christianity, possibly as part of funeral rites in the early centuries. Furthermore, studying the shroud with modern methods, such as infrared and ultraviolet photography, has revealed details that are not visible to the naked eye, such as bloodstains, which may indicate a ritual significance. In particular, the blood found on the shroud has characteristics that match the types of injuries that could have been sustained during crucifixion. This leads to the hypothesis that the Shroud of Turin may have been used in rituals related to the memory of Christ's sufferings. Over the centuries, the shroud has attracted the attention not only of the faithful, but also of scientists, historians, and researchers, as evidenced by numerous exhibitions and scientific conferences dedicated to its study. For example, in 2015, an exhibition in Turin drew more than 1 million visitors eager to see this unique relic. Moreover, the attention to the Shroud of Turin does not wane, and new research is conducted annually to address questions about its origin and significance in history. It is important to note that many of these studies use both traditional and modern analysis methods, allowing for a multifaceted examination of the shroud. For instance, in 2020, a group of scientists led by Professor Marco Restivo conducted a study of the fibers and found that they have a unique structure that may indicate specific weaving techniques used in the Middle Ages. Thus, among the numerous theories about the origin of the Shroud of Turin, one stands out: the hypothesis of its extraterrestrial origin. Some researchers, including Professor Peter Stevenson from the Institute of Space Research in London, suggest that the image on the shroud could be the result of contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. In the 20th century, particularly in the 1970s, interest in extraterrestrial life grew with the development of astronomy and the search for exoplanets. In 1977, astronomers from the University of Ohio detected a radio signal known as the WOW signal, which remains unexplained and may indicate the presence of extraterrestrial civilizations. Scientists are actively exploring potential habitable worlds, such as exoplanets in the habitable zone of stars similar to our Sun. Scientific research using telescopes like Kepler and TESS has discovered thousands of exoplanets, some of which may have conditions similar to Earth. For example, Kepler 801g, an exoplanet in the system of the star K2-138, located approximately 130 light-years from Earth, is in what is known as the Goldilocks zone, where the temperature allows water to exist in liquid form. It is also worth mentioning the search for extraterrestrial life within our solar system. Missions like Curiosity and Perseverance are exploring the surface of Mars in search of signs of ancient life. Research into the subsurface oceans of Jupiter's moons, such as Europa and Enceladus, also leads to speculations about the existence of underwater ecosystems. In this context, the Shroud of Turin becomes even more mysterious, as some scientists suggest that it could be evidence of contact with extraterrestrial entities using unknown technologies. One such theory proposes that the image of Christ on the shroud could have been created using some kind of energy impulse, similar to those that might result from highly advanced technology used by extraterrestrials. This viewpoint is supported by some UFO enthusiasts who claim that such technologies could only have been available to civilizations far more advanced than ours. However, this interpretation is controversial among historians and archaeologists, who insist on the terrestrial origin of the relic, based on radiocarbon dating conducted in 1988, which showed that the shroud was created in the Middle Ages. Nevertheless, not everyone is willing to dismiss their assumptions based on scientific research, and interest in the theory of the shroud's extraterrestrial origin does not wane. Ultimately, the question of whether life exists beyond Earth remains open, and each new discovery in astronomy or biology can fundamentally change our understanding. With each passing year, we are getting closer to unraveling the mystery of extraterrestrial civilizations and their possible influence on our history.